Welcome to Soulful Sunday here at Ariel's Corner. This is Ariel Gatoga. Oops, I'm so sorry. Stop that. Welcome to Soulful Sunday here at Ariel's Corner. This is Ariel Gatoga, and we are streaming live on YouTube. It's so wonderful to have everybody here. I enjoy being with you so much. Moderating today are the lovely Dre and the lovely Honey Paw. Thank you so much, moderators. And I hope everybody's having a great day so far. No, we don't have any premieres or anything like that today, but I do have a pretty strict schedule, so I'm going to try to not go over today. But if you do have any questions for me personally, we should have time to take them, provided I don't blab too long. And you can put those right in the chat thread of this stream. Our website is located at arielscorner.com, arielscorner.com. That's where you're going to find all of our stuff. So please peruse over there. You'll notice in the footer of every page we have links to our social media, including our Discord server and our private Facebook group. A lot of people complain that they don't like being on Facebook, but you don't have to be on Facebook to be part of our community. You can come on over to Discord, and we have a wonderful Discord community. And each of our courses has their own channel, and we've got all kinds of other channels too. So it's a great place to get questions answered, to receive and give support. Wonderful community. And we also have that private Facebook group for those of you who like being on Facebook. So those are our options for community. Also, our chat threads on our live streams are another wonderful way to kind of interact with one another as well. Our shop is located at arielscornershop.com, arielscornershop.com, and that's all of our exclusive Ariel's Corner merchandise. We don't have a regular shop open yet, but we should at some point in the future. But for now, that's another way that you can support our channel. If you'd like to donate to our channel, you can do that by going to paypal.me/Ariel Gatoga, paypal.me/Ariel Gatoga, or on YouTube here. If you're live, you could use a super sticker or super chat in the chat thread if you feel like giving a donation. Or if you're watching on a restream, you could also use a super thanks. We do appreciate your support. I am putting up another website pretty soon that's going to be a very, very simple website for each of the podcasts. So we'll have a Psalm one, we'll have a live stream lectures one, we'll have a vintage lectures one, just so it's easy to find. I know the playlists on YouTube sometimes are a little hard for some people to navigate, so I'm putting it on its own website so you can find your episodes that you're looking for more easily. And then I'll have transcriptions of the videos on there as well, so which is something that people have been asking for. So look for that. That should be coming out very soon. I don't think it's going to be too hard for me to put that up there, so it should be out there pretty soon. I'm forgetting something. I don't remember what. Something that can't be all that important, or I wouldn't have forgotten about it. But if I think of it, I sure will mention it before the end of the stream. We are off on Monday and Tuesday, and we will be back on Wednesday for more fun. So make sure that you join us each and every day, Wednesday through Sunday, 10:15 a.m. Pacific time, or catch us on a restream if you'd like to be part of our live streams here. All right, here we go. If you're in a place where it is safe and appropriate, please close your eyes and begin to take some nice, long, slow, deep, relaxing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. With every inhale, feel more peace and light entering your body and mind. And every time you let go of that, every time you exhale, let's say that again. And with each exhale, let go of all the tension in your body, along with anything in your mind you do not want. Inhaling peace, exhaling as you let go. We picture ourselves on top of a beautiful mountain in the center of a circular grove of trees. In the center of our circle, a bonfire blazes forth, lighting us and the grove with a sacred golden light. This is the light of perfect love and perfect trust, and it easily and efficiently burns away everything unlike itself, leaving us safe and serene. Into this sacred space, we invoke the presence of our Creator. To many of us, our Creator reveals themselves to be a mother and father, a goddess and God. We also invite the presence of our angels, our guides, our teachers. We ask that we be guided as we walk upon the way, becoming happier, more peaceful, more magical, and more loving people. Thank you very much. Blessed be. I occasionally get emails and comments from people that are often beginners in the craft who are frustrated because they don't seem to get the results that they want from their magic. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Sometimes what happens is people feel like they need help to, get their lives working, in a way that is better than what they're experiencing. So they'll turn to things like magic because they want some help. And that's a perfectly understandable thing to do. Turning to a technique that promises to be able to give you some sort of control or power over the events in your life, which is what magic is. Magic is using unseen forces in order to create change, not only in consciousness, but also in circumstance, in accordance to our will. When a novice especially comes to magic, they understandably are unclear as to the workings of magic and how it works. And it's very common to believe if I do certain things, I should have certain results. If I use this kind of water, if I use this kind of powder, burn this kind of incense, say these words, recite this psalm, I should get what I want. It should just happen. Maybe not in a puff of smoke. I mean, most people understand that it's probably not a puff of smoke, but I did these things that I read on some blog or saw on Facebook or on TikTok. Where's my stuff? And it's important to understand the difference between what Hollywood and fiction, and therefore many YouTubers and podcasters and TikTokers claim to be how magic works, versus the ancient magi and what we practice, what we teach, and the path that we walk. The ancient magi are depicted in the Bible because they were at that time of the New Testament a class of priesthood that were Zoroastrian in nature. But that was just one little blip in time. That was just one snapshot in time of a magical society. But the word magic does come from that priestly class. The magi is where we get the word magic. But it's not limited. The magi are not limited to that. So a lot of times people think, well, maybe if I can just study what the magi were doing, the Zoroastrian priesthood, if I can study what they were doing, I'll understand their real magic. It's not that they had the one and only claim to the so-called real magic. It's just that they were the famous ones of the time. And so much of what has been called magic was named after them. But the magi are a much broader concept than that one specific snapshot in time. The magi are magical practitioners from all cultures throughout all time. And there are many differences in practice, but there are some commonalities. And one of the commonalities is that we learn how to work our magic within our sphere of influence, our current magical sphere of influence. And I think what happens with a lot of new practitioners is they've never been exposed to the concept of a magical sphere of influence. They don't know that there are limits to their powers. And many of them haven't even built power. They haven't even done any kind of training. And so they don't know. Nobody's taught them. All they hear is all this stuff out there on the blogospheres and on the web and things like that, or in these books, or maybe watching some movies, and they say, oh, those witches, that's how those witches work, so maybe that should work for me. And then so many so-called practitioners of magic who are also interested in some of the fantasy that they have been brought up with, either through books or literature or television, movies, etc. They hope that magic works the way it does in this fiction as well. So they all kind of perpetuate this misinformation about what magic is. Now, magic is very powerful, and it does give us the ability to have power over our circumstances, but it's usually a lot more pragmatic than what people want it to be. Meaning that we have to, as I'm trying to explain here, and I keep getting pulled into different directions because of the way my mind works, but working within one's magical sphere of influence is the bottom line to success in magic. And you have to be able to define what that magical sphere of influence is before you can start to press up against it. And so if you've done any of our trainings, you know probably pretty much where you are in your magical sphere of influence. And the idea isn't to stay stuck in your current sphere of influence, it's to expand it. It's to expand that sphere of influence so that you do have more power over more and more aspects of your life. But you have to start with where you are. And so if you are one of those people complaining, I do all of this stuff and nothing ever works for me, nothing ever works for me, it usually tells me that you're trying to work magic either inefficiently because you don't know what you're doing. You don't understand that it's not really about the incense you're burning. It's not really about the words that you're chanting. There's more to it than that. So you need some training to be able to get your powers focused. It's either that or a combination of that and trying to work outside of your sphere of influence too quickly, trying to expand beyond what you believe is possible. And that's really what your sphere of influence is ultimately. It's what you have faith in. Now, most of you know that study with me or study get it out, Ariel. Those of you who study magic through Ariel's Corner, you know about the witch's pyramid. We have 4 sides to the witch's pyramid: faith, imagination, will, and secrecy. And the faith part of that pyramid is very fragile at first. And it needs to be built gently and lovingly over time. Because what you have faith in is what you get. And if you don't have faith that you can get that money that you're seeking, or that job that you're seeking, or that car, or whatever it is that you're casting your spell for, if you don't have faith that that's possible for you, it's very likely that you're not going to get what you want. And then you're going to come back and say, this doesn't work. And it's an understandable disappointment when something doesn't work. But understanding why it didn't work rather than saying this stuff doesn't work is so empowering, because then you can troubleshoot it. Oh, I see. I was trying to go beyond my sphere of influence too quickly. So how do I deal with that? Well, maybe break my goal down into something a little bit more achievable. Break my goal down into something that is within what I have faith in, that I can do. Therefore, in my magical sphere of influence. And then what you learn how to do is ride that sphere of influence. You're just pressing it. You're pressing up against the edge of it. and gently expanding it over time. Never so fast that it becomes scary or everything topples for you and you start having failure after failure. You want to build success upon success upon success. And you're not staying so far inside your sphere of influence that why bother with magic? Why bother with magic if you can just go do it, right? You want to be just right on the precipice of your sphere of influence where you do need magic to make it happen because it's beyond what you've been able to accomplish before, but you do see that it's possible. You do see that it's possible. And the more success you have, magically speaking, in your spellcasting endeavors, the faster that sphere of influence expands because you start to build up a success momentum. And that success momentum perpetuates itself. And then you become pretty darn powerful, pretty darn fast. And the secrecy part of it is where you protect that. The faith, imagination, will, and secrecy. The secrecy part of it is so important because as soon as you start saying, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did, it starts to poke holes in your sphere of influence because then you're putting yourself up on a pedestal where you have to prove yourself again. You have to prove yourself to all of these people that you just said, look what I can do. And now you have to repeat it and everybody's looking at you. And that can be very daunting. And frequently you get another failure when you do that. So that's why a lot of times people that are very successful at their magic don't talk about what they did so much. And so you don't hear about the successes as frequently as might be helpful for you because in other kinds of studies, you get testimonial after testimonial after testimonial, and that helps you kind of get excited about it. Whereas in magic, you don't hear about, well, at least in practitioners of magic that are pretty well trained, they don't give a lot of testimonials about their spells. They usually keep them private. And there's a lot of reasons to keep things private, not only for sake of magical effectiveness, but also just to protect yourself because we still live in a world where the population doesn't really trust us. They don't really like us. They believe in the Hollywood. They believe in the stories, and a lot of the stories don't paint us as very kind people that practice magic and witchcraft and things like that. We're seen as something dangerous. And so that's another reason why a lot of people keep things private. So if you're looking for genuine magical practitioners to pour out a plethora of testimonials, you're probably not going to find it. And the ones that do start to give a plethora of testimonials oftentimes start to see their successes dry up. So there's a lot of wisdom in keeping your mouth shut, in addition to working within your sphere of influence. So that's a big part of why beginners have trouble, is because they're trying for magic that isn't possible yet for them. It will be, very possibly, depending on what you're trying to do, it will be possible for you, but you have to build it up just like any other skill. You have to build it up over time. Don't sit down at your first piano lesson and say, I love that Chopin nocturne. Let's work on that. No, you're not going to be able to play that. You don't have the skill set for it. Let's start with, a major scale. Let's start with that and see where we go from there and build things up over time. And magic is another art form. It really is. It's another art form, but it's an art form whose medium is consciousness. Main medium of magic, the art form of magic, the main medium is consciousness, and learning how to train our minds so that we can have within our consciousness that which we desire. And then what we understand is through the laws of correspondence and cause and effect and mentalism and pretty much all of those hermetic laws, when we change something in our consciousness, then the physical reality changes automatically. When you can have a change in how you perceive something, that's the only way you can get the desired result. Because even if you get the desired result and you don't change your perception of it, you're going to turn it into something that you don't want, or you're going to get rid of it. You're going to reject it. You can see this when people that don't have the consciousness built for the amount of opulence that a lottery win requires to maintain, they do everything in their power to get rid of all that money. It happens again and again and again and again. People say, oh, if only I could win the lottery, then I would be happy. Well, the ones that do usually aren't happy, and they often end up more in debt than when they started. So it's about changing your consciousness in a very specific manner. That's what magic is. And if you can get the consciousness handled, the outcomes, the physical manifestations, take care of themselves. That's not to say that you disregard the physical universe and don't take care of things and don't take care of business. Of course you do. But you're not moving into the world of form to create the change. You're moving into consciousness to create the change. And then as the change starts to manifest, you do what you need to do in order to maintain that in the physical world. And very frequently, when you get these manifestations, if you're doing things well, if you're really working well, it seems so natural. It doesn't call attention unto itself too much. It does not call attention unto itself too much. Very rarely do my manifestations from my spells cause people to go, oh! And if it does do that, if people go, oh, I'm really quick to diverting the conversation away from that and talking about something else really fast. I don't want people talking about how amazing I am. I don't want people talking about, wow, look what he can do. I don't want that kind of attention, because I know that's poison to my magic. So I'm very quick to diverting attention away from the exciting manifestations that are happening, and usually the way I do that is start talking about them. It's the greatest way if you're trying to divert attention away from anything that you're trying to keep private, is to start talking about the other person. That's the fastest way to get them to stop talking about you, because people love to hear about themselves, talk about themselves. That's a nice little trick. Always downplaying the results. I remember once it was during a really bad recession, long time ago, and nobody was making money, and everybody was bitching and moaning about money. And I had a client come in, and they were saying, and I'm sure that you're not doing well. And, I'm not going to lie, but instead of diverting the conversation like I should have, I said, no, I'm doing great. In fact, I'm making more money than I ever have in my whole life. And it just turned the conversation into something that I didn't want it to be. Well, why is that happening to you? That doesn't make any sense. You should be blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, oh, shoot, I shouldn't have said anything. Now we're talking about how unusual my life is. And I don't want people thinking about how unusual my life is. That's energy being directed toward me that I don't need. So not only did I learn a valuable lesson about just keeping things on the down low, but I also learned a valuable lesson in how to divert the conversation to something else when that does occur. So we've got that sphere of influence, and we've got the secrecy. Those are usually the two biggest problems with beginners and why they're not achieving the results that they desire. The other problems are the other two parts of the pentagram, the other 2 points on the pyramid. Usually they don't know how to use their imagination properly. They don't know how to have focused imagination. And that's a skill you develop. That's why we have all these classes and courses, is to learn how to do things like that, how to use your imagination in a very disciplined manner in order to focus it so that it's not just this daydreaming, but it's a focused intent that creates results. And the other part of it too that is missing or undeveloped is the power of willpower. And people have a misunderstanding of what willpower is. They think willpower is a lot of tension and you just nose to the grindstone, taking the bull by the horns. That's not a magical will. That's the opposite of a magical will. In magic, you do not want to take the bull by the horns. What a horrible thing to do. Why would anybody want to take a bull by the horns? That just does not seem wise, but especially not in magic. We're not wanting to fight in order to get what we want. We want to have a relaxed and focused intention where our will has been developed over time to the point where we just know that when we say something's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's so because I said it's so, and it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. It's not a bunch of effort. It's not a lot of willpower. It's willpower that is not tension. It's willpower that is relaxed. It's willpower that's relaxed. There's no lines on the forehead and veins bulging because you are focused so hard and intently. It's a relaxed focusing, where the aperture of your focus gets smaller and more narrow, and there's that certainty that what you say goes. And there's no fighting, there's no tension, there's no upset, there's nothing but certainty that what you say goes. And how do you develop that? Slowly over time, just like building biceps or building any kind of muscle, or building skill in music, or building skill in dance. It's slowly over time, practicing again and again and again. And the good news about that is there's always something in your life that needs improvement, always something that you like. So instead of trying to go for those big giant wins right away, start going for the little things that are just a problem for you, maybe, or the little things that you wish that, oh, God, I'd love to be able to have, some new clothes for work. Well, that's probably within your sphere of influence, possibly. Maybe just do a spell for one new outfit. See how that goes. Just working on practicing, having that focused, relaxed will, that faith in yourself, being able to see what you desire coming into manifestation, and not talking about it to anybody, keeping it a sacred secret. And see if you can't manifest that new article of clothing or that new outfit that you want for your job or whatever it is that you're looking for rapidly. It can happen very quickly. And that's much more within your sphere of influence possibly right now than having, I don't know, whatever you're saying that you can't manifest. Perhaps you're trying to manifest a new house. You want to buy a new home, but you don't believe that you can afford that, or you don't believe that that's within your abilities, or you haven't, had any practice manifesting things before. So you can see how manifesting an outfit might be a little bit easier than manifesting a new house. Not that you can't manifest the new house. We want you to manifest the new house, but let's start with building your skill where it's something that's feasible for you, something that you can do that might be a bit of a stretch, but it's not going to strain your magical will. If you start feeling tense and like you really have to will something into being, you're probably trying to go too far too soon, too far outside of that sphere. So let's pull it back in and use whatever it is that is in your life that you want to either change or create as ways to practice, rather than just practicing magical exercises. Use spell work as your practice. Don't just practice, visualizing a yellow ball or something like that. Start out with what you do want, because you need that desire. You need that desire to fuel your magic. So you want to work within your sphere of influence, but you also want to work for things that you really want. Work for the things that you want, not the things you should have, not the things that you think you ought to have, but what you really, really want. Because if you don't really, really want it, you're not going to be able to get the juice flowing for the magic. Because magic's main catalyst is desire. And it's healthy desire. It's positive desire. Certain desires are put there by the universe for you to go fulfill them. So part of magic is learning, what do I want? What do I really want? Not what should I have? Not what do I think I should want, but what do I really want? And go for those things. And if those things are too big, well, the desire is still there. So the desire for having that house is probably still in there in other smaller desires as well. You can still find the desire to be, do, and have things that are a little bit more obtainable before you're ready to do the spell on the house, or the spell on the car, or the spell on the career, or whatever it is that you're saying you can't have, that you don't find success again and again. If none of your spells ever work, it's very possible that you're trying too much too soon, or that you don't know how to do the basics. You don't know how to do the fundamentals, the rudiments of magic, that faith, imagination, will, and secrecy within a context of desire. And that pyramid of power, that magical pyramid, is so helpful, not only to train you, to use your magic in a successful manner, but also to troubleshoot when things don't work out. Well, where on this pyramid am I finding weakness? And you have to be able to be very honest with yourself. And usually, I've noticed that it's with new practitioners that state that they don't have success. Usually, it's the faith section that's wanting the most. And so that's why it's good not to keep trying for things that are outside of your sphere of influence. Let's say that again. That's why it's a good thing to not try for things that are so far out of your sphere of influence, especially at first, because you want to build that faith. And if you keep having failure after failure, you're not building faith, you are destroying your faith. So pulling it back and doing smaller, what I used to call micro magic. I have an old vintage lecture called Micro Magic that you might want to listen to. And I have another one called The Power of Something. Just a little bit toward your goal, just a little spell toward your goal. If you are having failure after failure, well, then let's change that. We're going to start having success after success. And if you have success in casting a spell for a new blouse, yay, that is going to build up momentum. But if you keep having failure after failure, trying to do the spell for the new house, that's not going to help you do anything. So let's put the house on hold. Of course you're going to get the house. Of course you're going to get whatever you want. But let's focus on something else that you really want that's more obtainable. That's your first spell, is something that's more obtainable. Even something that you feasibly could go out and get yourself if you wanted to, but let's do the spell for it and see if it can't just come to you. Or if you don't have this chance meeting with somebody that had the extra blouse that they never bought, that they never wore. Oh, I thought this would be nice for you. Do you want this? Things like that happen when you do magic. All kinds of coincidences seem to happen, or things fall into place, or you get an extra check that you weren't expecting. That's exactly the amount that the new article of clothing or whatever you're going for costs. And those kinds of synchronistic occurrences are what help to build up your faith, rather than you just going out and buying the blouse and putting it on a credit card and going into a little bit of debt. That's not going to be the way that your spell manifests. Your spell is going to manifest with you getting that thing that you wanted in the highest way possible for the highest good of all. Not that you're going to put it on a credit card and go into more debt. So if you're one of those people that's complaining that your spells don't work, we're here for you. We want you to succeed. But let's start with where you are. And let's just make sure that what you're going for is within your current magical sphere of influence. And then let's also use the rest of that pyramid to troubleshoot it. Do you have faith that this thing is possible? Are you able to have enough desire in this thing that you can imagine yourself having it? Because if it's work to imagine yourself having something, then you probably don't want it enough. But if you really want something, sitting and experiencing yourself having it should be a lot of fun. It should feel really good. And yes, it does take some discipline to stay within your spellcasting procedure where you can imagine yourself having that thing. It does take some discipline and some work, but you can exercise that discipline on your spell itself. You don't have to do it separately. And then, are you talking about it? Are you blabbing about it? Now, I'm not saying talking about it meaning asking for help. That's different. If you're asking a teacher or a colleague or something for help in your spell or help in your magic, that's not really blasting a hole in your secrecy. But talking about it to people that don't understand, or talking about it to other people, just like, look what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. People that talk about their goals aren't usually achieving their goals. People that talk about their spells aren't usually manifesting their spells. So learning how to keep your mouth shut except for when you need some help. And you don't even talk about it when it manifests. The results will be self-evident. But you want to downplay those. You want to downplay that. You don't want the attention on you as manifester, because that puts you in, it gives you stage fright, basically. It puts you in a position where you have to perform then. You don't want to be in a position where you have to perform. You want this to be private. And your willpower is another thing that's connected to your desire body. It's easier to will that something be so if you really want it. If you really want something, it's much easier to say, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. Now that fire body in a witch's primer, that fire body week tends to be hard for people because it's a week where what you say goes. It's a week where you're really building your willpower. And some people have a hard time expressing their will because this world isn't set up in such a way where we are given permission to have will. In fact, sometimes we are taught not to have will. So it can be a challenge, but that's why we give you those exercises in that course. In a witch's primer, there's 5 weeks of building that power body, that pyramid. And that can be, for many people, the hardest week. But it's worth going through that. Because if you can have that willpower that is connected to your desires, if you can have that imagination that's connected to your desires, if you can have that faith that you can have your desires, and if you can keep those things sacred and close to your heart and not dissipate the thought forms by talking about them, then your success is inevitable, especially if you're working within your sphere of influence, albeit very frequently pushing up right against it, because that's how you expand that sphere more quickly, is by having success after success after success. So if you're not having success, those are some ideas that might help you to tweak things just a bit, because we want you to have success. If you're not having success, stop working magic for the time being until you can figure that out, because you don't want to keep having magical failures. You want to have magical successes. Now, not that that does not mean that you will never have a failure. Of course you will. You want the failures also ultimately once you have the right frame of mind, because those also are learning experiences. When something doesn't work and you've built your magical faith, it doesn't shatter your faith anymore. You say, oh, that's weird. Wonder why that didn't work. Oh, I see what it is. And then you can fix it. And you can change it. I remember in my, I had a great grandmother who was a devout Catholic, and she was very skilled at rosary magic, although she didn't call it that. And I remember somebody told her that so and so was something happened. I don't know, so-and-so's marriage isn't working or something. They broke up. And she said, well, that doesn't make sense. I said a rosary for that. You can just see it in her aura that she was like, no, that's not right. Because I know when I say a rosary, things work out the way I want them to. And that's the same kind of faith we want. And when something doesn't work, it's like, what? Of course it should have worked. What? That doesn't make sense, right? So we want the same kind of faith as my great-grandmother had in her rosary. We want the same faith in our magic, that when something doesn't work out for us, it no longer shakes our faith. It makes us quizzical and want to troubleshoot it and fix it and adjust it, because we know that, of course, it's going to work. It always works. So those are some ideas for those of you who are somewhat new to magic, or even if you're not new to magic, if you've been hanging around but you haven't been able to make things work, that's not okay. We want things to work for you. We want things to work for you not just occasionally, but consistently. And if they're not working consistently, it's time to troubleshoot. And you can turn this around quite easily if you get within your sphere of influence and you work that pyramid and you get your pyramid focused on only that which you truly desire. And then things should start working out for you pretty well. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be. Let's see if we have any questions. Oh, we do. Okay. Ariel, what are your thoughts about spell backfire? Seems no matter what I do, when your spell backfires. Well, there's a lot of reasons why a spell may quote, backfire. A lot of it has to do with deserving. A lot of times we don't think that we deserve what we're asking for, what we're focusing on. And if your spell is backfiring, it's because you're putting something out there in your thought form that you don't want. Because the universe isn't doing it to us with magic. We are putting our thought form out there, and then in the three-dimensional realm of existence, it seems as though it returns to us because of time, because we live in a world of time and space. So when it comes back to us, supposedly, that boomerang happens. If it's backfiring, if it's not what you want, there was something in the thought form itself that was causing that, which could be a lot of things. I don't deserve this, or I'm not good enough for this, those kinds of thoughts. So you may want to ask yourself, I have a lecture somewhere called Process for Solving Problems, something like that, where you ask yourself a bunch of questions about a particular topic, and you get under the surface as to what your beliefs about yourself and your deservingness of that is. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but I think it's called Process to Solve a Problem, something like that. But you can use it also as a process to troubleshoot when your spell backfires, because there's something in your thought form that is not what you want. And so you have to get under the surface and find out what it is. Usually it's because of a deservingness. I'm not good enough for this. I need adversity in order to get what I want, or something like that. Ariel, how does one really know what their sphere of influence is? Sometimes it can seem like faith is very high, but results appear felt, just not seen in fullness yet. Well, you know it's in your sphere of influence if it's something that is possible that you could do without magic. If it's something that's possible you could do without magic, albeit very challengingly, but you could see yourself achieving it, that's probably in your sphere of influence. If it's something that you just think, well, this is just so hard, or this is so beyond me, the only way that I can experience this is by fantasizing about it. That's not the same as the imagination of the witch's pyramid. The imagination of the witch's pyramid is creating it. But if it's only that you feel good about it when you fantasize about it, but you really don't believe that you can have it, then that's outside of your sphere of influence. If it's not occurring, then dial things back just a bit. You just dial things back a bit. You're probably just a little bit too far out for what your faith can muster right now. Ultimately, we want you to be out there. Ultimately, we want you to be able to have, be, and do those things. But if it's not happening, then that's not where you are yet. So pull it back. Maybe break that goal down a little bit into chunks if you can. Sometimes that's a way to do it. Or put that desire on hold if you can't break it down into chunks, and do something that you really want that's maybe a little bit more achievable first, just to build up that faith. Ariel, is finding the magical flow, as you've talked about in other lectures, an effective way to raise energy for a spell, or is that a different kind of thing? I'm not sure about raising energy, but yeah, I think it is in a way raising energy. A lot of times what people call raising energy is raising tension, though. And I want to make sure that you understand the difference. When we're doing that magic flow, it does raise energy, but it raises energy in a way that the more relaxed you are, the more the flow happens. And that magic flow is the basis for all magic. It's your life force. It's your life essence. And it's a wonderful tool to use. In fact, if you get really good at working with that magic flow, a lot of the other stuff is not as necessary, as far as, candles and things like that. Although many of us still like using those things because they're nice focal points, but we don't need them quite as much when we're working with that magic flow, because we are in the flow of what our soul's energy is, and our soul already knows what it wants. If we can get into what our soul wants, a lot of the desires of our heart start to happen a lot more easily, because we're not as beholden to what we believe is possible. But that also is something that happens over time. But yeah, the magic flow is a wonderful tool. Ariel, does that work also for things I really need, i.e. new kitchen sink? Is that possible to try that spell, or only things I'm already possessing? Of course you can do spells for the things you need, a new kitchen sink, a new roof. But if you do not believe it's possible for you to get the new kitchen sink, it's going to be hard for that to manifest through magic. But I think if you own a home where you have to, do a repair, you probably already have enough faith that it's possible for you to get the new kitchen sink. If it seems a little bit outside of your sphere of influence, maybe do another spell on something else, or figure out another spell that is within your sphere of influence first, so that you can muster that faith and then go on to the kitchen sink. But I have a feeling if you own a home, it's already within your sphere of influence. So yeah, go ahead and do it. Could the psalms listed under each category in the psalm directory be used for multi-day spells? Absolutely. Well, that's what we do. Oh, I see. Use one spell and then one psalm and then the next psalm and the next psalm. Yeah, you could. You don't have, some of those categories have a lot of psalms in them, though, so you don't need to do all of them. I mean, you could, but it's not necessary. But if you wanted to do a 5-day spell, choose 5 that you think would be nice for that, and then do those 5, and then see how you feel. And then if you feel like you're not quite there yet, then do it again. Then do another round. Do 5 more days of that. But yeah, absolutely. Did you say that there's a Facebook group for the prosperity magic class starting up? No, I did not say that. but there is a prosperity channel, a prosperity magic class channel on our Discord server. So if you're on Discord, we do have a dedicated channel just for the prosperity and money magic class. But the Facebook group is just, they don't allow for categories in there. So it's just an anything goes thing. Could you speak about the magical background of the witch's rosary? It triggers religious issues like the Psalms did. So I'm guessing the Lord's Prayer goes back before Christianity. I don't know that it does. I don't know that it does. I just, when I look at the Lord's Prayer, it's just so simple and it's so direct and it's so effective that I can't imagine that it just came out of nowhere. But I don't know. I really don't know if it did or not. From a Luciferian perspective, this is just me. You don't have to buy into my worldview ever. I never expect anybody to become Luciferian. But from a Luciferian perspective, that character Jesus in the Bible was just one of many manifestations of Lucifer. And so I see it as something that has been around probably forever. But there's no evidence one way or the other. I don't know. I really don't know. And you don't have to do the rosary. You don't have to. The rosary is not a necessary thing. It's just something I love, something that really works for me, works for a lot of people. But if it brings up a lot of religious stuff, you don't have to do it. Or if you get that rosary book that I have two different very pagan versions of the prayers. There's a pagan version of the Lord's Prayer that I did. Let's see. Let's see if I have it here. No, I don't. If you get that rosary book, if you look up the prayer in there, the Lord's Prayer, I did it as Father Sky. I did it as Father Sky rather than as Our Father. Because Our Father in heaven, what else is that? It's Father Sky. I mean, it's not to me. It's the same thing, but that's just me. But I don't know. I really don't know. Sorry about that. Oh, that's everything. Okay, wonderful questions. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for those, and thanks for being here today. And I have really gone over, haven't I? Thank you so much to the amazing moderators, Dre and Honey Paw. And I hope everybody has a great couple days. We'll be back on Wednesday for Witchy Wednesday when we will do more witchy stuff. And we'll see you then. Thanks again, and blessed be.